Welcome to Attuned for Wholeness with me, Lisa Pinney. Life is full of uncertainty, confusion, and heartache. It gets hard to manage at times. This show will combine your lived experience with self-awareness and prayer to help you navigate through those tough times. You know, those ones that keep you from living in a place of true harmony, fully attuned to your body, your soul, and your spirit. Attunement is a spiritual practice of getting emotionally honest and connecting with God so we can recover from daily life and our souls can go back to a place of rest. Together, we'll move away from the unhealthy ways of coping that temporarily alleviate the pressure, but ultimately leave us feeling more disconnected from our true selves. Attuned for Wholeness with me, Lisa Pinney, starts now. Well, hello, everyone. And today I have my friend Deb Kaufman here with us. And as you can tell, she's an artist and a podcaster.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to tell you a little story about how we met. So she works for Transformation Talk Radio. And somehow I got an email from her saying, hey, do you want to start a podcast? It wasn't on my radar. But I couldn't figure out how she got my email. And I normally would just go spam. But for some reason, I decided, I'm going to respond. And we got on a call. And as women do, we end up in a conversation totally outside of the sales call. But I'm a relational person. So in truth, I appreciated that. But the conversation took a turn that I wasn't expecting. And we started talking about Deb's soon to be born grandson, Everest. And there was a little problem that went along with that. And so I'll let her tell you about that in a moment. But I took a chance and I said, hey, would you be open to letting me coach you a little bit? And what unfolded from that was nothing short of amazing and has developed into a friendship. And so I'm really glad to have Deb with me today. Deb, tell them from your point of view, what happened in that conversation and what happened through the coaching that you received.
Okay. I'd like to back up just a tiny bit to how we met. The email that I sent you and the connection that we made. In my role at the Transformation Network, when I reach out to people, I like to feel that connection. So in that area of it, I feel like it was destined, it was meant to happen. And I never look at why or how, I just let it happen. And that's what I love about doing what I do. So, and that speaks, our relationship speaks to that so profoundly. So talking about our conversation, we had talked several times by the time we made it to the place where Everest was born. And you were gracious enough to offer some coaching to me, although it didn't feel like coaching, which I am sure in that role with you, that's where it is with you, because it's in your heart. I can see that. I can feel that, obviously. But we had a conversation. I had to go to where my daughter was kind of unexpectedly. She was going into labor. And I did not realize at the time how much anxiety was accompanying the coming of this baby. And you were able, through a conversation, like you say, as women do, had nothing to do with our working relationship or anything. It had more to do as friends and women speaking. You were able to kind of uncover that for me. And I was able to open up to you and say, I know this baby's healthy. I know he's okay. Yet I'm still in the energy of the last baby that was born. And his name was Will. We call him Baby Will. He had trisomy 18, and I hope I'm saying that properly. It's an extra chromosome. When my daughter was 5 months pregnant, we discovered that he probably would not make it beyond the womb. And if he did, he wouldn't survive for very long. He just had a lot of deformities, things were going on. And so that was gosh, years before Everest came into our lives. Um, and he ended up being born, stillborn, and we grieved baby Will. We also welcomed baby Will into our lives, even though we never held him, alive. But my daughter did, right? She had him inside of her in her womb. So anyway, she waited a long time. Her and her husband waited a long time to have baby Everest. They had one girl already. Paisley was 8 years old when baby Everest was born. And we knew through all the testing that Everest was going to be okay. There was extensive testing, even beyond what they had done for Will, but because of the circumstance of
Right.
Will. And we also understood it was probably a fluke and not going to happen again. Yet, I know I carried, and many of us did, carried that anxiety of baby Will and what happened with him. So you started opening up that anxiety for me, which thank you so much, because you pointed out and I agreed with, we don't want Everest being born in that environment. Babies are so in tune to how they're accepted, how they're received. And he's received in love, but we don't want to receive him in fear and anxiety and those sort of things. So one of the ways that you helped me with that was being able to open up that anxiety and let me face it and work through it and understand what I was doing with it.
So it was a risk, actually, to say to you, a relative stranger, would you be open to me coaching you?
Yeah.
Because you could have been like, no, I didn't ask for this. I'm here to do my job.
Yeah.
Or no, I'm kind of mad at God right now, so no, I'm not open to being coached. But you went for it.
Yeah.
And what I noticed was your face started to brighten.
Yeah.
And sometimes with other people, when it's anxiety driven stuff, I notice their shoulders, they go, and I see their shoulders let go and then be able to take a deep breath. But with you brightened up. You, I don't want to tell your story. What happened that made you let go of the anxiety?
I think just acknowledging it. I think that having someone be brave enough to be able to face that with me and to be able to say, here's what I'm seeing. Are you open to discussing that with me? I offer a coaching session to you. And like you said, there were risks to that, because one, we had a professional relationship going, and two, we didn't know each other really that long, but your heart was in the right place. You wanted to see this baby welcomed into the world in a joyous
Yes.
way for us as a family, and for the baby, for Everest. So that brightening that you saw, the smile on my face that you saw, was someone giving me permission to step out of that anxiety of what we had lost with baby Will and step into the joy of birthing Everest, and be able to just to embrace that without fear. So that's what you saw in me. I needed someone to guide me to that place of celebration,
Well, it's interesting because I have a little saying, and it's the pathway to the heart is as individual as your experience. And so everybody has a story, and there's commonalities within the story, but it's your story, and your anxiety is your personal part of it.
Yes.
Somebody else may have anxiety, but it might manifest completely different.
Right.
Okay, so then we added to that the fact that I'm a faith-based coach.
Yes.
And you had your own little thing with the church, right? So that was like double risk.
It was.
And to be honest with you, I don't think I paid that much attention to it at the time. I was like, I just think this woman's struggling, and that baby could actually come out and be anxious.
Yes.
And that's part of my own story. My mom was an anxious first-time mom. She carried me with anxiety. When I was born, she held me with anxiety, and therefore I cried a lot.
Yeah.
And I didn't want that for you.
Yeah, that is one of the things that you brought to light for me. I mean, you didn't really share that specifically with me, but you did share it with me, the anxiety and being born in. And I realized that, I was so completely proud of my daughter for being able to move into this space. She
Yeah.
wanted another baby. She waited until she was ready, and her
Right.
husband waited until they were ready. And then she carried him with pride and joy. And of course, there was anxiety, but boy, you didn't see much of it. She celebrated him every step of the way. And I wasn't really in that space. I was pretending I was in that space,
Mhm.
but I
Well, that
really
one
wasn't
part of
there.
you is in that space and another part of you is in some other space altogether. Like, let's
Right.
acknowledge both of it. There's a part of
Yeah.
you that it's like, oh, I'm happy. Our
Yeah.
family's growing. This baby is healthy. That's all the logic stuff. But the
Right.
deep emotional stuff, the fears that are very real, right? You don't
Very.
want to see your family go through that again.
Mhm.
You don't even know if you can handle another heartbreak like that.
Exactly.
And grief is hard to begin with.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Doing it twice would be really like the anticipatory
Mhm.
grief would be horrible.
Yeah. The your point on I didn't even realize, how profound the grief was with me and carrying it. Um that's really important, and being able to acknowledge that side of it is so important. I was just kind of shoving it down, trying to pretend like it wasn't there. And you are so right. It's added grief when you question if you're facing it again. And once when you face grief the first time, with a circumstance, okay, you don't really know how it's going to feel and what you're going through. So you just go through it and you slide through it. But when you're facing similar circumstances the second time around, you know what it's going to feel like if it happens. So some of it's self-preservation, and
Yeah,
just being ready for it. But
yeah.
I mean, you opened that up for me in a way. So I'll continue
So
on. So
when it opened up,
yeah.
let me ask you this. What
Yes.
part of the coaching impacted you the most? Did you feel more attuned to your body or your mind or your spirit? What part, or maybe you even felt more attuned to God? What parts of it really were highlighted for you?
See, that was the surprising part for me because you are so right. And we hadn't really talked much about this. I had church hurt in a powerful, powerful way. And I carried that with me for many, many, many years. Before that, I had a really intimate personal relationship with God. And all of the things in humanity and people being people,
Mm.
just elevated, and I stepped away from the church in a very and was extremely hurt. There were things done that shouldn't have been done. Now, I didn't stand in that and like this shouldn't have happened, it shouldn't have happened. What I did was kind of cocooned in it and went, it'll never happen again. So I
Mhm,
was in a protective state. And
mhm.
and I had learned, I had at that point, I was still in touch with God, but not in the way that I normally would have been. And
And might not ever be again. Let's just
yeah, yeah, well,
let's just
that's
face
true.
it.
It may not be. Um, you know, but I'd always had that personal relationship with the energy around me and God, and I call it say, I label so many different ways, but it's all the same thing, right? Our creator.
Mhm.
Um I used to wake up in the morning and, hello, what are we going to do today? Oh, thank you for this. Thank you for that. And I kind of lost that in it. And so with baby Everest coming, it wasn't in that place of, oh, thank you for this, like, oh, thank you for, I had lost that. I was cocooning myself so I wouldn't get hurt. And I honestly needed that intimate relationship at that time so that I could step into that celebration. So there was
Yeah,
go ahead.
self-protection is very real. You get
Yeah.
hurt,
Oh,
what do
yeah.
you want to do? You burn your hand on the stove, you pull back.
Right. Right,
You
yeah,
go down the steps, you're like, I don't know if I want to go down steps again, right?
yeah,
Uh,
and it's there for a reason, right? But we can make it so profound that we lose our way in life, our footing,
True.
actually, yeah. So
It's
you were able to
okay to
open that up for
self-protect,
me.
but it's okay to stop at some point.
Yeah, yes, yeah. And self-protect can happen in so many ways. There's healthy ways and unhealthy ways. I was in an
Mm,
unhealthy way on it. At that point, what you opened up for me was the ability to be able to reach people who are believers and still be able to step into that circle and protect myself. Haven't made it into church. Don't know if I ever will make it into church again. Do I believe in God? Certainly do. And I don't have a problem speaking it now, where I did before, because I was afraid I would get hurt again.
mhm.
So that's
Well, and everybody has a story. One of my guests was back in church and she's functioning in it and she's happy with it. And there wasn't always a church, but there's always a God, right?
right.
So, and if we had to go to church to have a relationship, I don't think that would work. So
No, it becomes a purpose, or not even purpose is not the right word. It
thing you
becomes a
do.
duty. Yeah, what'd you say?
It's a thing you do.
It's
A
a thing
duty.
you do. It's a duty.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks good, it feels good, you're doing the right thing. Um,
And here's the thing, and we talked about this. Barabbas, that video that you sent,
yes.
um, he was on the cross next to Jesus. He
Mm-hmm.
never said a sinner's prayer. He never really walked with Jesus. He never got baptized. He didn't pray in tongues. And yet he was in heaven with Jesus the same day.
Yeah.
So it's God outside of the church,
Yes,
God
yes.
outside of the box. I don't think anybody would ever actually be able to. So before there was a church, how did people encounter God? Somehow he got to them.
In a profound way, also.
Yeah.
Also, it's God wants to reach us where we are, in who we are. And that's not always church. It can be, and it's very powerful. Like I like to honor people in where they are and what works for them and where their connection is. God uses the people in church in very profound ways. God uses the people outside of church in very profound ways. It's the connection, it's the understanding, it's the heart issue of it, knowing that it's true and genuine, that gets God's work done, and that sort of thing, gets that connection going. And I love to share life with people. I mean, I can see that. That's why we connect so well, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be in a church setting for me, but it can be all about creation and nature and all of the energy around us, and how that can help us, admitting the negativity along with the positivity and walking through that together.
So I purposely wanted to do this podcast because it's tearing down of a structure of religion that needs to be torn down. And that structure needs to be let loose and opened up wide, because what we have been doing was good for a time, but it hurt people. And I think God's jealous about that kind of stuff. And he's like, nah,
I agree. I agree.
There's this passage that says, for a long time I was quiet.
That is so true.
Right? And I think it's one of those times. And so just our conversations, they have been life-giving for me. The way God met you is the way I like to live life.
Yeah.
I don't like to make a dividing line.
Exactly.
It's about love.
Mm-hmm.
And my love compelled me to ask.
Yeah. Thank you for that. But I've got a question for you. Can I turn the tables a little bit?
Of course.
I have a question for you. What would it look like in your mind if we were able to tear those walls down? If we didn't all need the church to do this, if we didn't need that space, but we could reach each other in that space of understanding and believing and sharing without judgment,
See,
without
nobody's
trying
ever
to
asked
create
me that.
things. I mean, think about it, Lisa.
Yeah. To me, it could be coffee shop.
Yeah,
Whoever you run into, you have a conversation with, and you brighten their day. And we talk about stuff like that, but when you think about the impact that it leaves, maybe that person needed it. Maybe my openness allows them to be open with other people. And I can't be open if I hadn't allowed God to bring forth my true self, not my
right,
religious self, but my true self,
right, right.
right?
And
Because
that's,
the religious self is like us and them. I'm not about that. I
yeah.
think I think that life could be so much different, but you've given me something to ponder now.
I think, and it's there. And many of us are in tune to it. Not all of us are in tune to it, and that's the way it's always going to be. But I think it's in the small moments in life, like you say, in the coffee shop. I remember being in a general store one time, and this woman was just having a time in the line. She didn't look like she had a lot of money. She didn't look like, she was really connected with anyone around her. She was just in her distress. She finally makes it out to check out, and she's like $3-4 short. And somebody's like, "Here, just give her this." And she would not take it, right? So I went up to her, and I'm not putting myself in a different light, okay? I went up to her. This is the operation of connecting with people. And this is just how I do. I don't think about it. It just happens. And many of us operate this way. I went up to her and I said, "You're having a rough day. I don't know what's going on. Would you allow me to help you in this situation?" "Well, I can't pay you back." "I don't expect you to pay me back. You will pay me back by letting me do this for you. You're putting a smile on my face by knowing that we ended up with an hour conversation after that. She had ended up in a divorce she didn't want. She ended up with a job that she ended up losing. She had kids she needed to take care of. And those $4 that I gave her that day that she was able to accept because I honored her in it,
Yeah.
fed her children that night. Right.
Mhm.
And we ended up talking about some resources that might be able to help her along the way. Church wasn't mentioned once, but she was a church going person, right? But it wasn't mentioned once. And the reason I know she was a church going person is because she reached out to me later and let me know that she had reached out to the church and they were helping her. But it took that simple little
Yes.
conversation in a line that wasn't like, "Get out of my way, I want to move on." Like, "Give me a minute and let me help you so I can have that in my space and honor and make with smile. And also, you can have it."
Mhm.
It opened up an avenue for her. And we all have that in us. We do.
God with hands on.
Exactly. Exactly. That's the way that I see it. So,
I do too. I mean, there's all kinds of ways that we can demonstrate love
mhm.
and the love of God without even using the words.
Well, you used words, but that's exactly what you did for me, right? You took the time to notice and just let it come forward and offer it. And it was a risk.
And not everybody, it is, but not everybody accepts that.
No, no.
Some people are like, "Oh no, I'm good."
Yep. And that's okay. We have to accept people where they are.
And that's the respect part. I mean,
That is.
somebody just truly might not be ready to go there because
Right.
part of anxiety, it can be so debilitating that you can't. You're
Right.
like, no, this is too much and
Mhm.
I can't.
Mhm.
I can't let you bring more into my life. I can't unpack it right now because I'm on overwhelm. I'm on overload.
Yeah. Yeah.
And anxiety does something in the body. And so when you're on overwhelm, your body is feeling it. I know that's true of me. And that's when I'll go into self-protection mode, as we were talking about, and I'll be like,
Yeah.
I can't have noise. I don't want nobody around me. Definitely don't talk to me because it all sounds like noise.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
Very,
can't
very true.
process it. So of course I wouldn't be ready to be coached.
Right. Yeah.
People
And
are
that's
like,
where you have to be careful. Some people aren't ready to hear what you may have to say. I always try to go into a listening mode with it and an offering mode, and ask for permission to be able to, speak or just be there with them. Not everybody's in that. I know there's times when I'm not, just like you say, I'm in self-preservation mode, and I'm like, I just need my bread. I'm leaving,
yeah. And other times people just aren't ready to unpack the pain that they're in.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. It's
And if
hard.
you go too fast, you cause them more harm than good.
Mm-hmm.
And so asking and listening, so it's listening first, then asking permission and accepting their response.
Which is exactly what you did, and the timing was perfect for that. There would have been no other time that I would have been able to do that, because my daughter was in labor at that time. I was at her house on a Zoom meet with you, waiting for that baby to be born. I would not have been able to unpack that anywhere else, because I was in this mode with everything's okay, we're good, we're great. But when the moment came, I was overwhelmed with, boy, I'm not really sure that I 100% believe that everything's good.
So we're going to have to continue this conversation another time because we're out of time for
Oh, you
today.
need to show a picture of Everest. Did you do that?
I'm thinking maybe Jacob did it.
Okay, good.
Um, and
We need to
I
say
want to
that
just
now.
say real quick, there's an Attuned app that's coming out that helps people navigate through anxiety and stress. Should be out hopefully next month.
I'm
But I
excited
want to
about it.
thank you for tuning in. And next time, I'll see you then. Thanks for tuning in to Attuned for Wholeness. I hope you got the tune-up you needed today. Keep tuning in on the first and third Wednesday of every month at 4:30 Eastern Standard Time and 3:30 Central Time on ttm.com for more conversations around caring for our emotional health and spiritual well-being. I'd like to invite you to consider becoming a resiliency coach to develop the skills that will help others heal and bounce back quicker from negative events. Or maybe you're someone who's looking for a holistic and spiritual path to move through anxiety and unresolved trauma. For both of these resources, visit my website at www.wholenessandpractice.com. And thank you for listening to Attuned for Wholeness on Transformation Talk Radio.